All right, so you may wonder why I'm in a little forested clearing here. I'm not too sure, to be honest, but today we're looking at Polespears. Now this right here is my first Polespear I ever used. It's actually made from a fishing pole that I bought, an iFish 2 telescopic pole. Now these fishing poles are really bad, like really bad. You do not ever want to use them, which is why this became a Polespear. Now Polespear, you know, the name sounds like, you know, I'm going down with a fish, sticking it like that. It's not like that. It's a bit more complicated. I love to leave you with the image of me sticking a fish like that. I can't do that. I'm not that fast. So Polespear, you've got a rubber band here at the end, really thick one, you know, almost like the ones you use for training. You're gonna slide your thumb into that, and every Polespear, you know, the rubber band is measured out exactly to fit your spear, meaning that when you stretch this to the grip here and you grab it, it's gonna be the perfect, you know, it's gonna be perfectly taut. So it's not gonna be too tight to hurt your hand or damage the rubber, but it's gonna be perfect. So this is the loaded position of the spear. Now this spear is not too powerful. I could stand here all day holding this like this, you know. With most spears, you can't hold on to it for more than a minute or so because the rubber is just really tight and it's really strong. Firing the spear, simple as that. Letting go of the hand, shoots out of your hand like harpoon. Now these things, you may see it like a toy of the spearfishing world, but you know, these things are actually quite powerful and they do pack a punch. Now, important to remember, you gotta be closer to the fish when you stick it. You don't have the same range that you do with a spear gun. So that's good to know. Now, obviously the Polespear, the profile of the Polespear in the water is a lot less than, you know, say spear gun when you're always keeping it in front of you. So the fish don't get spooked quite as easily. So you do have, you can actually afford to get a lot closer to the fish than you can with a spear gun. Now, obviously this thing, after a year or so, had to be retired, you know, and I'll show you what I moved up on, and we'll take a look at the rest of the spears. So let's do that. So the next spear I ended up using was also a homemade one. This one's got actually a proper, let's see here, flopper tip on it. So this thing is a lot more legit than the last one. You know, it's still light. Obviously, it's a bit more nose heavy than the last one, but it's still light. This one actually became my favorite flounder spear. It's light, it's easy to carry around, it's not too big, it's easy to spear flounder with. Obviously, got a bit of a thicker rubber band on here, same kind of grip. This grip, albeit, is, you know, your hand can slide off, which is not a good thing, right? When spearing with friends or, you know, in the water when there's things that you don't want to hit. So this spear had to be decommissioned. Now it's a good spear and all, but you know, it's hollow, so water floods it. I mean, there's just so many issues with it. But it was a good spear for actually a long time. Now flopper tips versus, let's say, you know, 3-pointed tips. I actually do like the flopper tips better, but it all depends on what kind of fish you're going after, you know. If you're fishing, you know, wrecks or going after smaller fish, reef type fish, I'd always say the 3-pointed. It's a lot easier to hit. You've got a bigger area to hit with, so you know, most of the time you're gonna land the fish. So moving on from this, I'll show you the best spear that I've ever made. Homemade as well. This thing is about 7.5 feet of pure steel. It's obviously coated with all kinds of stuff to make sure it doesn't rust and the steel doesn't make contact. Now this right here is a 3-prong tip, whatever you call it. This thing actually made for taking out weavers, some of the wreck fish, spearing, you know, close to my favorite wrecks. It's a really good spear. It's got a more, obviously you got this rubber band is a bit skinnier, but this is powerful stuff. I actually specially ordered this from a website that makes Polespears. The whole thing is about 7.5 foot of just steel pipe. I did weld on, you know, these things are just dynamite solid, so I don't think it's gonna break. It's all welded on to make sure it's watertight and just really secure. I did weld on a bolt here in the end, and sort of smoothed it down. The end here is colored red to make sure that if I drop the spear or whatever, that I'll always see the tip, but black is sort of the best color to hide this spear in the water. Now, what I did first is I obviously spray painted the whole thing, the different sections, and then I took some epoxy that you use for like fiberglass, and I actually covered the whole thing with a brush. Now this is super watertight, you know, and it's super, nothing's ever gonna come off here, everything's sturdy. I even did with this actually spearfishing sticker. That looked pretty cool. So this spear has got quite some weight to it. It's not too heavy to sacrifice on any hits, but it's a heavy spear, meaning that it's got a lot of power into it when you fire it. You could take down most, I can't imagine a fish in this sea that we've got here that I can't take down with this. And with a spear gun, if I get a bad shot, it takes about, a good solid 30 seconds to a minute to reload that spear gun, to grab the spear, stick it in, pull back the rubber bands, all kinds of stuff with the line. This right here, you reload in like a second. Let's say I get a bad shot, I'm already reloaded. So this thing's a lot of fun to shoot, but you got to be careful with some of these bigger spears, I could actually argue that you can get more fish with this since you're able to maneuver it into a crevice, where the gun would not fit or you'd have to take a long shot. This is the first one. Flimsy junk by all means. Now this right here is about 7.5 foot. I'm not actually sure exactly how long it is, but I think it's 7.5. Now that is a bit about Polespears. Stay safe, be smart, and try to get out there. Whether it's fishing, diving, whether it's going just on a walk into nature, this kind of scenery really helps the brain.